Hello, friends, and welcome back to the shop. Today is Sunday, February 15th, and it is a weird day weather-wise here in southeastern Pennsylvania. I say weird because last night we had snow and freezing rain, and it was just nasty yesterday. Snow didn't accumulate much. We've got maybe a quarter inch, but then it switched over to freezing rain, and this morning it was 31 degrees, and now it's raining, and we're apparently going to have a high of 52 today. I just don't understand that. But the good news is I'm probably not going to have to shovel anything. So um, wanted to talk today about continuing to talk about pipes, continuing on from last week's video a bit. And this was at the suggestion of one of the commenters, MetaFortune 77, I believe was the commenter's name. And he asked, he said, you mentioned this thing about 70 to 100 bowls of tobacco doing something to the Briar. Can you talk more about that? And I said, sure. I think that's a good topic to talk about. And I warn you up front that there's not a lot to say about it because it's kind of observational rather than scientific in any real way. But I do think it's real, and other people have said the same thing. So I've noticed over years that pipes do change over time, and they change in a couple different ways. So you can kind of put like three categories, and you're breaking. So there's a new pipe. So I guess there's four categories. Brand spanking new pipe. The first time you smoke it, it's just not right. But you expect that, and by second, third bowl, it starts to settle in, and you're like, oh, okay, this is the pipe. And then you get like 10 bowls through it, and at that point, you're pretty happy. It's broken in, and I'm going to put that in the category, and I'm just making these terms up for the sake of this discussion. I don't really think this way, but let's call pipes like that an acquaintance. Okay? So, an example, I'm going to do show and tell again. Not too much, I promise. An example of an acquaintance would be this pipe here, which is the Lavat from Merchant Service that I showed you a couple weeks ago. So my normal routine with a new pipe is I smoke it once a day for a week or two, and then I kind of smoke it a couple times a week. I know it's not orthodox, but that's what I've been doing for over 30 years, and it works for me. So yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've smoked this. I haven't kept track, but it's probably 15 to 20 times now. And I would call this pipe an acquaintance. It's broken in. It's not going to break in more than that. You're not going to build cake beyond that point that's going to matter much. And yeah, I think it's serviceable at this point. First couple of bowls were a little, I hate to say rough, because this is a fine pipe, but it's been as good as any other pipe that I've ever had. But it's just any new pipe, you're going to have a couple of bowls that are, quote, rough. So this is an acquaintance. I believe that over time it will change more, and it will enter that next category. And that category I'm going to call a friend. Sorry. I had to think of something. And an example of a friend is this pipe here. So this is one of mine. This is a billiard that I made from a pre-phrase stummel. And I made this at least a year ago, and smoke it a lot. It's one of the pipes that I like to take if I'm driving. They get smoked a lot, and it's gone beyond that acquaintance stage. It's now my pipe, and I know it. I adjust my cadence to it. I do this automatically. I'm not thinking about it, but yeah, this is a friend, and will continue to be a friend for a while. So that's category number 2. And the difference between those two categories is category number 1, acquaintance, you just break it in the pipe. You're just getting that coating of cake on it. You're seasoning it, I suppose. It's just you're losing the taste of new Briar and whatnot, and you're replacing it with tobacco flavor and charred Briar and whatever else it is that makes that lighting up the pipe and drawing the smoke in feel right. Then you get to know it. You get to know its ins and outs. You adjust your cadence to it. You start to, it settles in a bit, and that's when you got a friend. And a friend stage lasts a long time, and I would say it lasts for about 70 to 100 bowls. And other people have said this too. Now, I've never really thought about it that much. It just sort of happens, and there'd be these pipes over the years that I had from very early time. Uh, this being one of them, and I'll tell you more about this pipe, that I would start reaching for more often because there was something about them that was different. I just enjoyed smoking them more. And those tended to be the older ones, not necessarily ones that I bought brand new and said, "Oh, I love this pipe," but that kind of grew on me. And then something happened. I never really thought about it much other than the fact that I would like these pipes more. And I was listening to it's Brian Levine's podcast. I always forget the name of this. It's Pipes Magazine Radio Show or Pipe Radio Show Magazine Podcast. It's one of those. Look for Brian Levine. You'll find it. Really good podcast. If you're into that sort of thing. I don't listen very often anymore. I used to, in the summertime, spend more time listening to podcasts if I sat outside and had a pipe or a cigar in the evening. But it seems like that time has evaporated. Anyway, a couple years ago, listening to Brian Levine interview Joe Langford. It's a great interview. I think it might have been 2 episodes, actually. But he, and Joe Langford, if you don't know, he was the gentleman who blended the Seattle Pipe Club blends. There's a picture of him in the title card here that I put in specifically because I want to credit him with sort of having this thought crystallize for me. And he passed away back in 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. So sadly, he's no longer with us, but a wonderful guy based on what I heard in this interview. I never met him personally, but really deep knowledge of pipes and pipe smoking, lifelong pipe smoker, great tobacco blender. People really love the Seattle Pipe Club blends that he was responsible for. So yeah, he's talking, and he says very offhandedly, well, we all know something magic happens after 70 to 100 bowls. Huh? Wasn't expecting that. And then he kind of doubled down on it and explained, it's my experience, and other people have said the same. And I thought, well, something does happen. And that kind of crystallized the thought for me. And then I started talking more about it. I've talked about it here on YouTube and had people say, oh, yeah, that's true. I've talked to folks at pipe shows and things like that. And, in general, there is this concept that after a period of time, the briar changes in some way. Something happens. And I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I'm not even going to speculate on it. Now, this pipe, I hesitate to call this a basket pipe, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But I bought this pipe over 30 years ago at a tinderbox. It has no name on it. It is completely unmarked, except some on the stem there used to be, and I may have buffed it out at this point because it was very, very slight stamping of the word Mexico. That's the only identifying thing that was ever on this pipe. This pipe's been through wars. I snapped the shank on it, and this was one of my earliest pipe repairs. I put the shank back onto this guy. And it has been a companion for over 30 years. For a very long time, I only had a handful of pipes, and it would be smoked more than once a week. Then it became part of a weekly rotation. These days, it's more maybe a once a month kind of thing, just because I have a lot more pipes than I used to. That doesn't need to be right. But, and I say I hesitate to call it a basket pipe because it was cheap. I know it was like very, very inexpensive when I bought it because I didn't have a lot of money back then. So it was probably like a $20 pipe. But Tinderbox, to my memory, did not actually have a basket. So this was in their display. It was just at the low end of their display. But, by all measures, you would call this a basket pipe. It just wasn't in a basket. So I can't say I remember the first time I smoked this pipe, and I can't tell you how long it took to break in, and I can't tell you how long it was a friend. But after 30 years, I can absolutely tell you that this pipe is now in the third category, or I suppose the fourth category if you count brand new as one, of family. So this pipe is different from this in a somewhat intangible way. There's something about this now. It's not just that I know it. It's not just that it's seasoned and the right amount of cake and all that, but maybe the Briar has stopped releasing whatever Briar might be releasing over time. And I know it's boiled to get out all the resins and stuff, but maybe there's just something that has to work its way out. Maybe it stops absorbing and it's absorbed as much as it can absorb, and now it's just going to be smooth and steady. I don't know, but this pipe is not the same as this pipe. And this pipe will not get to this level for another 5-6 years probably. So what does that mean? I had some guys comment on the last video and say, well, I own 25 pipes and I've only been smoking for a year, so I'm never going to get there. A good friend of mine owns, and I won't call you out, but you know who you are, owns close to 400 pipes. And he said, I only smoke one bowl in a pipe and then I put it away. I clean it and I put it away. Never smoke more than one bowl. Got to rest. He's one of the guys that believes in resting. I don't, and they're both fine. I don't think it matters. He thinks it does matter, and he's very, very careful about that. So he said he's never going to do that. With 400 pipes, how are you ever going to get 70 bowls through all of them? And, that's okay. For both of them, that's okay. Because the friend stage, that middle ground, is still pretty darn good. It really is. But if you can get a pipe to this stage, it's different. And if anybody out there has had this experience and can chime in on this, please do so. Do it in the comments. If you're a presenter, make a video about it. I want more people to know about this. Not because I think you have to do it, but because I think a lot of guys are missing out by buying a lot of pipes early on and never getting a pipe to this stage. Now, are there head starts to it? And this is where it gets really interesting. It might be the age of the Briar, like just how long the Briar has been drying and aging after it's cut. Well, that's a possibility. It might also be the number of times it's smoked, and that's also a possibility. I don't think I have. Let me check. No. Unfortunately, I do not have an estate pipe here with me. I had hoped I would, but I don't. So I have estate pipes that are ancient, that I bought on the verge of being called trash and brought them back to life. And those things certainly have been smoked more than 70 times. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's the magic. If I just buy an old estate pipe, it'll smoke like one of these. Or maybe it's just the age of the Briar. Well, I don't think it's the age of the Briar. And the reason is, this pipe I made from one of these pre-raised stummels. So this is from a factory. The airway is not drilled. That's just a center mark there. I have to drill the airway. But this is Briar that was cut and phrased probably more than 30 years ago. Okay, it's from an old factory that shut down, and this pipe was made from that kind of Briar. I would say that this probably broke in faster than I would have expected and got into that friend stage faster, but it wasn't a shortcut to what this pipe is. So I can't say that just having old Briar is what does it. It might help a bit. Sorry, I got a amp here. It might help a bit, but it's not the secret. So what about the idea of an estate pipe and letting someone else do the work for you? Like I said, I've got some of these very old estate pipes, and in every case, the first time I lit those up, it was like, okay, this is nice. You know, it didn't require a lot to break it in. It certainly accelerated me getting into that from the acquaintance to friend stage, and that's great. And I highly recommend estate pipes for that reason. But you still need that 70 to 100 balls. And I don't know why. Again, I think that would take out of the equation any of these ideas about the Briar needing to be, needing to let go of whatever resins might be in there or absorb to the point where it's so part of it is me, and maybe it takes less than 70 for an estate. I've never counted. I don't know, but it's not immediate. So I think part of it is you, and by the way, that's very true of that shift from acquaintance to friend. Part of it is you. You got to learn that pipe. You got to understand it. It has to become your friend. But then something changes that I can't say what it is. It's magic. And I don't like magic. I'm a scientist. I prefer numbers, but I can't put numbers on this. So it's not just the age of the Briar, and it's not just the number of times it's been smoked. It's the number of times you smoke it. So maybe it's a combination of what you've learned during that friend stage plus something that's happening to the Briar as it seasons and just settles. So, as I said to the commenter, whose name I have now forgotten, I apologize. I'll talk about it, but there's not much to say because there's just not much known about this. And yeah, there you have it. So, again, if you've had this experience, talk about it, comment on it, let me know, let others know, because I think guys are missing out by buying too many pipes too early. Plus, it's expensive to do that, and why do that if you don't have to? Why do that if you're going to have more fun not doing it? Reminds me of here comes a tangent. Reminds me of a quote I read from a Japanese woodworker who, Japanese tend to be very traditional, and many of them still are hand tool only woodworkers. I'm sure there's plenty of Japanese woodworkers that use table saws and whatnot, but the ones that you see in the magazines and stuff, they tend to be hand tool woodworkers. And I think it's because we're fascinated with the style of tools that they use, which is different from the Western style. Anyway, this woodworker, someone asked him, why don't you use a router? You can get that done in 10 minutes. And he said, why would I want to do something in 10 minutes that I enjoy if I could spend all day doing it? And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And that's part of the reason why I like to use hand tools as well. It takes longer, but I enjoy the process. And it's kind of the same thing with pipes. Yeah, it's not as much fun in that acquisition sense to just get a handful of pipes and really get to know them. But it is fun. And you get to do it for a long time. So, yeah, why not? All right, I should wrap this up. Plans for today? I gotta go get dog food. That's my big plan for today. I did finally paint the inside of that cabinet yesterday. My back finally recovered to the point where I could get down in there and crawl around inside the cabinet, which was not fun. Contorted myself quite a bit, and now guess what hurts again? It'll be fine now. It's just a little discomfort. So I gotta go buy dog food in the rain and check and make sure there's no ice on the sidewalks, which there may well be, but when it gets to be 52, I think it'll be gone. And yeah, that's about it. Tomorrow is a holiday here in the U.S. It's President's Day, and so I'll be hopefully spending some time down here in the shop, puttering around, getting things organized. Starting to look really good. So hoping to get back into this sort of thing in the not too distant future. With that, friends, I hope you have a fantastic Sunday, and I look forward to a great week again. And until we speak again, I will look forward to talking to you all again very, very soon. Bye now.